headshot a cop. Finger on the trigger, muzzle on the forehead, one clean shot, banged. But that wasn't what was bothering me. Now that I have your attention with the cheesiness, it'd be better if I started at the beginning. It's not like I'm running out of time sitting in my police cruiser in the middle of the desert. The sun was still on its way down, and so was I. Let's hope you're not lactose intolerant. My dad had joined the army to drink booze and chase snatch. The old crude was holed up in an elderly home, which is ironic because home was the last thing on his mind in his prime. He ended up marrying a broad from Buenos Aires of all places, and that's when he spiraled out of control. She's dead now, and he was on his way. But here's what the old bugger used to say: do the right thing. The irony was so overwhelming it was borderline infuriating. I had always dismissed that, not least because I thought I had always done the right thing anyway. But what is the right thing? It depends on what angle you're looking at it from, your point of view, your perspective. Thinking about my wife longingly was the right thing, but doing it while getting my dick sucked by a broad in a restroom stall wasn't. Yeah, that happened, but that's not the point. My dad did what he thought was the right thing because he had convinced himself it was, and somehow that was what I was using to justify my actions of the past few hours. I'm not a good person. Nobody is. Everyone's got a good side and a bad one. But here's the kicker: they aren't always the same size. We try and compensate with our good, or for you cultural folk out there, with our socially acceptable side, until the other side is barely noticeable. But the bigger the dark side, the more you compensate. And you pray that the law of averages brings the median down to normie levels. It's funny how you bring up the law of averages only when you're in a bind, before it hides behind blissful ignorance again. I can tell you where I stood in the self-discovery spectrum myself, but I could only imagine. His name was Tyler Jose. He had joined the precinct a month ago and had quickly established himself as a friendly chap who didn't give two shits about your background as long as you bought him a drink. I didn't know what to make of him at first. I didn't hate him, for one, which was new. We got along fairly well, but it wasn't until the trailer park crack bus that we really hit it off. Both our names were in the newspapers and we were local celebrities. He was good, and he made it known. Every time I went out drinking, he'd tell me what I was missing, how I could be better at being me. Most of it flew over my head, but I stuck around anyway. And the more time I spent with him, the more I realized how different we were. He was handsome, the crowd loved him. He was good at his job, and he could devour a porterhouse like no other. We invited him over for dinner, and my wife thought he was such a gentleman. Her words, not mine. That night, we also discovered he was a homosexual. Now that I think about it, I might have even wanted him to be gay. Not for reasons you might think, your perverted readers, but because it subconsciously allowed me to one-up him. Yeah, it was bad. It got worse though, for me. I had received a call about some black kids holding up a liquor store. Wrong time, wrong place. Wrong time for me. Wrong place for them. I slugged the tallest in the leg, then the chest, then the face. He was 15. I could swear he looked 19. And the fact that they carried replicas didn't make it any easier. I was suspended indefinitely. They took my badge and service revolver, but let me keep my car. I got my name in the papers, again, which is great. The moral high ground camp was on my ass. I started drinking and ending up in seedy bars and whorehouses. Booze and snatch, who knew? Tyler visited me at home quite frequently. I wasn't exactly jumping with joy at his arrival, but it made my wife happy, so I went along. You see, I love my wife. She was the only one who saw me for who I was. She was this delicate, fragile entity who stuck with me through everything, and I didn't appreciate her enough. Hell, it took me this long to even bring her up, but that's because I didn't want public attention on her. Never did. Society didn't deserve her. Heck, I didn't deserve her. Worst part was, she knew I didn't. I started writing to take my mind off things. Tyler's visits became more frequent. We talked about work, to my lack thereof. He was still trying to give me pointers on how I should plan my return. He even gave me plot lines from my book. My wife looked happier than she had in a long time, which made me happy. One afternoon, I called up Deputy McGinnis. I think that was his name. The booze had done a number on me, and we decided to meet up at a bar at the far side of town. He had been a small-time author himself, and I thought he might be able to help me with my writer's block. He looked a lot like some Hollywood actor I knew, but I could never place him. He even sounded like the guy. So he got talking, and he did have a few ideas which were a heap better than Tyler's. And that's when he told me something about Tyler I had always suspected, but wanted to believe otherwise. He wasn't gay. You see, McGuire had worked with him in the past in a different county. He told me Tyler was straight as an arrow. He had even had a wife, and the rumor was that she had cheated on him and had disappeared soon after. There was no official inquiry, but the general consensus was that she had left him for this other man. But McGinnis felt it was a cover-up. I tended to agree. It somehow felt more organic, knowing Tyler. That's when the gears started turning, and it all started to make sense. Kudos to you, my dear reader, for figuring it out earlier. I'll be out of a job soon, but at that time, I had a job on my hands. By the time I got back home, it was already dark. I planned on drinking a bit more before turning in. I worked things out the next morning. Halfway through my second drink, I heard sobbing from the bedroom. Fuck. Not again. This had been a recurring theme for the past few nights. I assumed she had had enough of a drunk, unemployed nutcase living with her. But tough luck. It was my house. The sobs got louder and louder until I couldn't take it anymore. I started to get up and fumble my way to the bedroom when it hit me. They were too loud to be sobs. My synapses went into overdrive. I picked up my pace and grabbed my service revolver on the way. As I approached her door, the sounds stopped as abruptly as they started. Maybe she'd heard me. I waited a few seconds, listening intently, giving her the benefit of the doubt. But my anxiety got the better of me, and I slowly opened the door. My heart skipped a beat, and a strange sense of accomplishment rushed over me. My wife was there, apparently sleeping, but so was Tyler. He was buck naked, and he looked just as ugly in the nude as I had imagined. I went over to my wife and slowly put my hand on her mouth to let her know I was there, and to make sure she didn't scream. Her eyes flew open on my touch, in shock at first, and then there was resignation, as if she knew this was going to happen sooner or later. Once I'd calmed her down, I made my way around the bed to the other side and stood directly over Tyler Jose. I put the gun to his skull and hoped this roll of dice changed my fortune. It was a clean kill. I loaded the body into the trunk and drove. I've been driving for almost a day now, and I could swear he always smelled the way he smelled now. Rotten, decomposing, putrid. Now, as the sun finally went down in the desert, I opened the door and got out, shovel in my hand. It was strange. I felt disoriented. Time had become fluid, and dream and reality had melded into one. It was like you woke up from a nightmare and realized reality was even more terrifying, and went back to sleep only to find out that nightmare was reality. As I made my way toward the trunk, tears streamed down my face. It was bizarre. I never cry. I wasn't crying then either. I believed I wasn't. And then, I opened the trunk slowly, revealing my fate. It was empty. Heh, I wish. Now she was there, her dead eyes staring at me in resignation, her pupils dark as coal, her body cold as granite, strangulation marks on her neck. She looked safe. I mean, who was I kidding? I could never kill myself.